I'm Landis Jackson, and I have been in HR generalist for 15 years in entrepreneurial organizations, and so bring that experience. And right now I'm teaching at Bow Valley College in the Human Resources program. I'd like to spend the next 40 minutes or so with you just talking about compensation. I was intentional with the title of the presentation today because I want you to talk about or think about your total compensation in your workplace. It's much more than money. The topic of today is about retention, and so we started the conversation this morning about value proposition. We then led into how do you make your new employees feel welcome? And now we want to talk about, so how do you make them engaged throughout their working career at your particular organization? And it involves more than, as I said, money. So that's why total compensation is part of this particular package of presentations. The first thing that sometimes we forget to do, and I encourage you to do this on a yearly basis, is that you think about what is our company all about? What's our vision statement, our mission statement, and what do we do on a daily basis in our organization? If you find that there's inconsistencies or incongruencies in any of those, then you'll find that your employees are not as engaged. When you're thinking about your philosophy, your corporate structure, your corporate business strategy, you want to be thinking about, do we actually live this, or is it up on the wall? And people walk by that framed vision statement, and when they live in this organization, they see it's something completely different, all right? So this is the first thing that I'd like you to think about, is in your particular organization, if we were to ask you the business strategy, why are you in business? What do you hope to do? Who are your clients? Just be noodling those things around while I talk about total compensation. Where do you want to go? How long do you want to be in operation? Some organizations are only there for a short period of time. Others want to be there for duration. Does your vision statement include the word people? If it includes the word people, do you really care about them? Do you show them that you care? And do you do that on a regular basis? Also, you want to think about the type of employees that you have in your organization. Are they full-time, part-time, or are they volunteer? Because you want to make sure that you're making every group of employee be engaged and to show them the value and the appreciation that you have. Try and get away from that, what I call a hierarchical structure, where we're the full-time. Oh, you're only the part-time? And even less, you're just the volunteer. Try and do away with that. You're going to build engagement, and hopefully you'll walk away from this conversation with one more idea of how you can engage those different types of people better. The other thing is, what do you do when you don't have all your staff in one location? How do you make people feel part of the entire organization when they're not physically there? Lots of ways you can do it, but you do need to be conscious of it. And something that you need to think about in your organizations is, how do we communicate? How do we get the message from the frontline staff, who are as important as the management team? How does that communication flow? How do we encourage it? Are you only allowed to speak as an employee once, and that's at your performance review? Or do you encourage them to give you feedback? Do you ever ask your employees, your new ones, how did you like the orientation package that you had? Did it help after 1 week? Were there any questions that we didn't answer, that we should have answered? Those are the types and pieces of communication that you need to think about, because it all plays into your organization and sets the stage for you to be thinking about total compensation. It's that engagement piece. Nothing speaks more powerful to your employees than asking their opinion. They are very engaged when you ask their opinion, and then the second thing is that there's action taken. And sometimes that action is you coming back and saying, we just can't do it. But at least they know that they've been heard and that things are being looked at. If you're going to do those surveys in your organization, make sure that you review them and make sure you have some action plans and you carry it out. If you're not going to do those things, don't do it, because you're setting your people up for expectations that aren't there. Great example is that I'm working with one organization, and they value, and in their vision statement it says, we communicate exceptionally well. Well, in the first meetings that I had with the frontline people, so the customer service people, they said, nobody ever asks our opinion. When we give suggestions, it's never heard. No one tells us what my job is, and I never know if I'm doing a good job or not. Well, we need to revisit that communication piece in that vision statement. So you really have to align all of your HR functions with what is, in fact, the business strategy. And then, what's the organizational culture? What is that personality? And does all of that fit together? Third piece I want you to think about in your organization is, what behaviors are you looking for in your people? How do you want them to show up to work? What are you expecting them to display when they're at work every day? Do you want them walking around with a smile on their face all the time? Well, maybe that doesn't fit in your organization. But talk about behaviors and what you are looking for. And I encourage you to reinforce those behaviors with your employees. And it doesn't have to be money related. Giving people feedback about, I liked how you dealt with that customer in this particular situation. I encourage you to lose 2 words, in your vocabulary if you're a manager or you're in HR, and that is, well done. It doesn't tell anybody what they've done well. So the point is in their mind then about, well, that's great, I've done well, but what the heck was it that I did well? Another phrase we tend to use, and we put on evaluations, is good job. And again, make sure that the individual knows what in fact they've done a good job at. So it's just fine-tuning your communication. So these are the 3 points that I've chatted about so far. And I just want to give you a minute, so I'm going to be quiet, and I want you to think about, so what is our vision mission? What is our business strategy? Why are we in existence? Number 2, I want you to think about your organization. How are we organized? Is it very hierarchical? Very flat, so everyone in the organization can speak to each other? How do we organize conversation? How do we organize information? Do your employees find out more at the water cooler than they do when you have a team hall meeting? And then think about, what behavior is it that we really want our people to show? Just give you a minute to ponder that thought. And then at your tables, if I can just get you to have conversation, get to know those people around that table just a little bit, share with them kind of an aha. Maybe you say, we've got this piece, we've got it nailed, we've got the alignment. But as you were thinking about it, you might say, we do need to spend a little bit more time on this piece. When you're talking about compensation, you always need to start here. It's this strategy piece. It's thinking about, what is our company all about? What makes us different from others? So please share with your group about things that you looked at or thought about in regard to your business strategy, your behaviors you're looking at from your employees, and then the organization itself. Are things in alignment before we get talking about compensation? So away you go. Okay. If I can move us along to the next piece that I'd like you to talk about. With the various people we have now in our workforce, it's also important for you to think about one other piece, and you can tie this to compensation as well. And what is your corporate responsibility? What are you doing socially in your particular locations that you are working in? Are you involved in those particular locations? If so, how are you getting involved? Are you asking your people for ideas? One thing we did in our organization that worked really well is we wanted to adopt a charity. And so we left it to the people to come up with 3 or 4 suggestions of a charity we would adopt for that particular year. And then they did presentations to the employees, and then we voted, and the people decided on one organization that we would get involved with throughout the year. And we developed a relationship with that group. But that's what I mean about a corporate responsibility. We are finding that more and more employees want to do more at work than just come in and do the task at hand. It's that involvement in the community. It's that wholeness piece. So you might want to be thinking about that. And don't feel that if you don't have all the people in one location, that that's a limitation. Not at all. You can capitalize and build on that. And a couple of other things that I just want to put out there. When you look at your workforce, you should be starting to do some evaluation, looking at some metrics or some numbers of who do we really have in our organization. What skill set do they bring? What are the technical skills that they bring? What are the softer skills they bring? What experiences do they bring to the organization? And start to use those. It will develop the breadth of your organization when you start to really analyze who do we have in our workforce. If you've got volunteers because you're part of a nonprofit, or even if you've got a volunteer piece of your profit organization, again, look at the experience you've got with them. Just because my volunteer job is to come in and to work job fairs, I might have other talents that you aren't capitalizing on. So you want to ensure that you're always in connection with the people that you've got in your organization. And it's much more than I'm an HR professional. You are a person. What other skill sets do you bring? Okay? Ensure that you are, now that you've got an idea of what your organization is all about, are you hiring the right people? Do your recruitment strategies fit the type of person that you're trying to bring into the organization? And then is your selection process aligning with that strategy? So this is what I mean about every piece of your HR strategy needs to align with your business, your organization, and the behaviors you're looking for. I'd like to get talking now about the money piece. A lot of people say to you that the money is the most important thing to your employees. It is important because people do need to live. However, there's much more than that. And so that's why I'd like to open up the conversation and talk about, I'm going to separate it. One is going to be financial, but the other is going to be non-financial ways that you should be thinking of. Are we compensating our employees in other ways? Because there's many more ways for your people to be compensated. First question I've got for you is, do you have salary ranges for different positions in your organization? The salary ranges can certainly cross over each other. So don't think if you have in your mind, our receptionists make $35,000 to $42,000. The next salary range can't start until $42,100. No, they can cross over, but just ensure that you do have those salary ranges in your organization. It makes your organization be more accountable. You can show then if anybody has a question, because you'll find your people are getting more assertive. They want to know what's going on in the organization and how it applies to them. So look at those salary ranges. That even applies to part-time. Do you pay your summer students more money when they come back year after year after year? You might contemplate that because they've got expertise. They've been here before, they're coming back. So reward those people for coming back. Volunteers, what are you encouraging? What are you offering to those volunteers when they come back to your organization? Because you'll find people are not volunteering anymore for years and years and years. Your volunteer basis is now starting to maybe look at projects. I'll come and work for this particular project, and then after that I can't. I'm leaving. But they may come back this time next year. Well, are you encouraging that, and are you rewarding that? Janet has already recommended a survey for those of you that are in the not-for-profit field, and so I've listed it up here again. And I'd like to reiterate a point she said, and that is that get access on those surveys. And she suggested some for you. Look and see, are you in the area that you should be in regard to your compensation? You don't all have to be paying top dollar. Those days are gone. You can certainly be at the low end, but you must complement your financial payment with other things if you're going to be at that end. And it's really part of your engagement and your culture that's going to develop that. So just a couple of comments on base pay. Base pay, you are paying people for the time they're there. And so I want to go back to that question I asked you. How do your people behave when they're at work? If you say that you're paying them to start at 8:30, are they there at 8:30, or are you letting them come in at 8:45? And are you talking to them about it? Because trust me, other people are looking to see what time people are coming in and what they're doing when they're there. So you're paying them for the time. And you'll get a more engaged workforce if everybody is on the same page. All right? If you've got flexibility, I encourage you to use it, because sometimes with small children, have you ever noticed, darn it, they don't always go according to what you think. So sometimes those mornings are a bit of a disaster. And so to have some flexibility for your employees is one less stress for them. But to have it with everyone in the organization, not just a select few. So be thinking about that base pay. What behaviors are we asking people for? I encourage you as well to start doing an external market assessment. And there's two ways that I encourage you to think about this external market. Have you ever walked into your competitor's workplace? Walk into that reception area. Have a feel. Have a sense of what's going on around here. If it's possible, talk to your competition. What's the salary expectations that they are offering? Look at your competitors, because your employees are doing exactly the same thing. And you want to educate your employees about their total comp package, so that when they get an opportunity to move, they are comparing apples to apples. Your staff as a whole just tends to look at base pay as their compensation. And what you'd like and should do is to educate them about all the different pieces of their compensation plan. And I also encourage you to do an internal audit. Let's look at and let's take all the job titles that are the same. So let's look at the administrative staff. What's the difference between our executive assistant and our receptionist? Are they doing different jobs? Is the base pay different? Do we have different expectations for those different roles? Those of you that are in the coffee industry, look at your job titles that you have in your particular organizations. What are you expecting from different people in different job titles? Do people know that? And then share that information with other people, because a great way to enrich, if you can't keep paying more and more money, a good way to enrich your staff is to give them the opportunity to move to a different department for a while. Job rotation is great. For 4 months at a time, 2 months at a time, whatever works for your organization. But job rotation is something that you might want to think about. Because at some point, you're going to tap out on money. You can't keep paying more and more money. So you have to look at other ways to enhance or enrich. Another opportunity in some of your organizations is that, believe it or not, there will be that one person that really wants to get into training. And so to ask your staff, if anyone is in that area, and then to offer them a train the trainer course to make them be successful. You might not move them into a complete training role full time, but there could be topics that you would like them to do, maybe a 15, 20-minute presentation on. And that's a way, again, of rewarding your staff that show initiative. Some of you are in the field that you can offer base pay, but you can also offer incentives. And just a couple of comments that I'd like to give you is ensure that you are rewarding behavior. Don't have everyone receive the same amount of increase. Get your good people with that increase. Your mediocre people, you might bring a little bit less of an increase in. And those non-performers, why are you continuing to give them a salary increase? They're not doing the job that they're supposed to be doing. And I just pose that to you to think about, like, what are we doing in our organization? Is it a flat 2% increase every year? And if it is, and your head office isn't here, you might have to start conversation with them. But say to them, we want to pay our top performers. We want to show them that we care about them. And those mediocre people, we want to pay them as well, because you've got to have soldiers in your workforce. You've got to get people getting the work done on a daily basis. We don't all have to be A players, but those people that are not performing, really? And you're giving them a salary increase? What are you saying to them? It's okay. Hey, I get a salary increase, whether I work hard or whether I don't. So be thinking about that. In regard to your incentives as well, make sure you have conversation with your people about their bonus. What do they have to do in order to earn? I'm finding a lot of companies I'm working with is that people really don't understand the bonus structure. I don't know what I have to do to get 8% or 5% or 2%. And so I encourage you to have those conversations with them about, so what exactly do I need to do? And ensure that it's measurable. Don't just say, do a good job, because that doesn't tell them anything. Okay? Benefits. Benefits. Some of you cannot offer benefits in the type of organization that you have, but those of you that are offering benefits, a couple of comments that I'd like to make for you to think about your benefit package. When you send out that offer letter and you send out that summary sheet which talks about benefits, when you bring people in for their orientation, do you ever start to talk to them about what do benefits actually mean? It's nice to see it on a piece of paper, but what's it going to mean to me as an employee? And then to get them to use the benefits. But more importantly, on a yearly basis, do you assess your benefits? What's being used and what's not? In organizations I've been with, I've also gone to my EAP provider. And I've really got them to help us with our offerings, our benefit offerings, our additional things that we are offering to our staff. I also work with a service provider, and I have them prepare a list every year for me of the top 5 drugs that our employees are using. And then we try to do lunch and learns or something like that on those medical issues that we are seeing, and try to help give people ideas of how to cope with whatever it is that they are experiencing. There's lots of options with benefits, and there's lots of options with how you package your benefit plan together. If you have an opportunity, I encourage flexibility. Question I want you to discuss around your table: what benefits do you think people in the various generations are looking for? When you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, what do you think are the top 3 benefits to each of those generations? Have a quick conversation. What benefits are important in those particular age groups? So, ideas, folks. What's important to those 20 to 30-year-olds? What's important? What are a couple of benefits you think that really matter to them? Vacation is one, for sure. They are not going to be committed to working 50 weeks of the year, all right? They want to have more time off than that. So vacation is one. Secondly, you may find to that age group, benefits are not important. So for you to say your benefit package is going to add 20% to your compensation, that doesn't mean anything to them. Because
offered him a job. He was like, I don't know, 20, today again, 21 or something, and we offered him a job. I went through the package, and he said, can I get the pay equivalent of that?
Absolutely.
And we did, because we wanted him, so.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's just not the same value. When you're in your 30s to 40s, you've got little children maybe, and so then all of a sudden things like medical and dental start to kick in. Some of importance. Where I'm going with this is the flexibility piece. If you have any options that you can become a little bit more flexible, try and do that. 40s to 50s, what's important in the benefit piece? What are you starting to think about? Retirement. So you want to see if there's a pension plan of some kind. Sorry?
More vacation.
Absolutely. Yep. More vacation.
And we were just talking about that at our company. That's one thing that's really good. I have people I work with who have been with our company for 30 years.
Yes.
And they get 8 weeks of holidays a year.
Fantastic.
Right? So every year now that I'm with the company, I get an extra day until I get to that 8 weeks.
Super. And do
So
you cap it at 8 or does it keep going?
it's at 8 for everyone, and senior management actually get 9.
Good.
So it's
Fantastic.
an incentive to move on.
Fantastic. Yeah. How about if you're in your 50 to 60 range? What starts to happen? None of you would be there. I can tell you from experience what it is all about. Yes?
Thinking medical and drug coverage.
Yes, absolutely.
And flexible work arrangements as you sometimes, now it's getting later and later, but starting to think about retirement and just wanting to cut back and slow down, especially if you are experiencing health issues.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was brought up at our table, pension plans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where's my pension? Where am I at?
Yes.
How much longer do I have to work?
Yeah. A couple of things I just want to draw your attention. I've given you a lot of information that you can certainly read when you go back, but I want to highlight a couple of things that I'm finding that are becoming a little bit more popular, and that is wellness or well-being programs, but not just focused on medical, not physical, all right? Also starting to talk about those financial. There's 5 pieces to a wellness or a well-being program. One is physical, which is the most popular. So the example I gave you earlier about going to the service provider and saying, what are the top 5 illnesses that we are providing drugs to our employees? So that's physical. Second is financial. We have a lot of people who are first jobs out of university. So they're struggling with debt. And so they're coming and saying, do you have any suggestions? We don't know how to deal with our debt load. How do you start to handle budget, those types of things? So we are offering workshops on that. Third, to do with the community. How can we become more involved in the community and being aware of the community and your impact on the community? Could be talking about the environment. Who knows? It depends on what the hot issues are in your particular community that you live in. Yeah.
What method are you using to make those available, and do you find that your employees are using them?
In the wellness area? Yeah. The wellness, we've got a health team that is comprised of employees. Only one manager is on it. And so they are the ones that are coming forward with ideas. Now, we don't do all 5 every year. We would maybe do just 1, but it wouldn't always be physical.
But you do presentations, like actual...
Could be presentations, it could be them. One of them I'm going to talk about is leading into the community-based, and people wanted to adopt a charity. So we actually went out to that particular charity, and we worked there. So it's not always coming in and hearing presentations. It's different ways that we are engaging people, and in different capacities. And it is sustained.
We use an online resource called LifeWorks, and
Yes.
we have kind of a general login.
Yeah.
But I honestly wonder how many people are using it. I constantly forget. I have worked in the same industry for nearly a decade, and I've worked at different financial institutions, and they all use the same company.
Right.
And I constantly forget it's even there.
Yes,
so I
exactly.
rarely, if ever, use it, or when I get on there, I don't really know how to use it.
Yeah.
The resources aren't easy to find. So I'm wondering how that could be done better.
I think the thing is that you need to talk to your employees about how to use it, and little reminders. We tie things into a newsletter, and there would be a comment in there about something that would be used in the provider that you're talking about. So that's something, but you have to always remind people, because it's not obvious and it's not a habit. Once it becomes a habit, then it's something different. But that's what I would suggest. Great question. And then you know what else we talk about is career. Now, some of you are going to say to me, why in the world are you talking about career? You've got these people with you. Why are you starting to say, what kind of skills do you need? Where do you want to be? Any age group that we've got, we found that if we focus on career development for that particular year, that's where we get the most positive feedback. Do you know what? I got to do a self-assessment of myself. I got to become more self-aware. How do I come across? What do I need to work on? What's needed in this particular organization? And what are the other growth opportunities in this organization? What about if I want to go back to school? Do you support people going back to school? So that's an area that we have found to be quite popular. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that there's 5 different areas of wellness and well-being that you might want to think about, and it might work in your particular organization. So we've talked about money because benefits and compensation or base salary are the compensation piece. Let's talk now about non-monetary. And I'd like to get you to think about these in your organization. They bring lots of value. People really look for these things. What growth opportunities do you have in your organization? Do you advertise your positions internally? And if you do you promote from within? And is it a structure that has merit, or is it, you've been here 5 years, we're going to promote you? You've only been here 2, so you don't get the job. Make sure you've got some validity to your process. Second, how do you recognize? Please stop taking people for lunch if they can't stand the person they're going for lunch with. That is not recognition, all right? And think too about recognizing people in a public space, because some of your employees are so shy. That's terrible for them. Instead, a handwritten note might be appropriate. Might be the president just coming and talking to them, or it might be their manager, or who knows what the dynamics are in your particular organization. But be thinking about recognition and what works for that individual. You can recognize individuals, you can recognize teams, or you can recognize the entire organization. Recognition gives lots of opportunities. Number 3, do you ever offer social rewards? Do you ever have? Let's celebrate. We reached a milestone. And sometimes they don't have to be all that organized, just kind of organic. Be thinking though, if you're going to have food, don't be having a celebration and then have 20% of your workforce not be able to eat whatever in fact it is you're offering. When you have those lunch meetings and you've got a very limited budget, you don't have to provide people with the full lunch. Maybe they can bring their main course and you can just supplement with drinks, fruit, whatever it is. You've got lots of choice. Social rewards sometimes, do you ever start your meetings with just getting to know each other better? You know, it's not always those 20-item agendas that you have to get through. One organization I was at told me that the people here talk on and on and on. We've got to shut this down. What could we do? What we did is we took the chairs away from the tables. So when people walked in, there was no chairs. I'll tell you, that meeting was more effective than any they'd ever had before. And it made a point. So it's just thinking about different ways to acknowledge who's in your workforce. Merchandise awards, if you have swag, feel free to share it, but make sure it's of value. Have you ever walked away from your organization with stuff and you've thrown it in the garbage? It hasn't meant anything to you. So ensure that you think your employees will value whatever the swag is. You might think a hoodie is a great idea, but others might not. So if you cannot all do it, have flexibility with the swag that you're offering. Okay? Time off is really valued. And that could be just, again, organic. It's Friday of a long weekend. You've worked hard on this project. We've liked how you've done this. 2 o'clock, why don't you head out? Time off is of value.
Can I say something?
Sure, absolutely.
I think time off is fantastic, and I know we have a health and wellness group that we do a day off with pay for the winner of the the basket, right? It's
Okay.
just for the staff. But I also know with time off, it can do the opposite effect, right? Because we went through a period, it just seems like, well, everyone's just getting time off for this, and I'm not
Exactly.
getting time off for this. And
Yeah.
I think you have to be really, really careful
Yes.
on how you provide that time off.
It has to be mindful.
Yes.
And it also, you have to tell people why individuals have earned the time off.
Or there's a lot of talking.
Oh, there is. It sets up gossip. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a valid point. Valid point. Social activities. Do you have them just be the employees, or do you invite the significant other? Do you invite children? Do you always have it in the workplace? Do you have it outside of the workplace? What variety, what flexibility do you have in your social activities? Do you start your social activities during the workday? You should. It's related to work. Start those social activities maybe at 3, 3:15, 3:30, whatever time your shift ends or your workday ends. Start a little bit during the day so that people can attend in case they've got to pick children up at the end of the day. And then make sure it matches the culture of the organization, your personality. If you're trying to have fun in your organization and no one ever smiles, no one ever laughs, I think you better take a second peek. Interesting discussion on motivation that I'm going to leave with you, but what motivates people in your organization? And something that I'd like you to think about yourself, what motivates you? And I think you'll discover it's not the same thing all the time. Your motivation level changes, and it's no different than your employees. But think about what motivates people. I found in on my companies I've worked in that growth and learning is important. And it's from two ways. I want to learn new skills in order to do the job better, but I also want to learn more about the career. So we have mentoring and we have coaching, and those are different. And so that is something you might want to think about for growth opportunities. If you cannot offer more money, this is a great point for you to think about and think, how could this work in our organization? Recognition I've talked about. Just be careful with recognition that not everyone gets recognized. If you're doing a team recognition and you've got 2 non-performers and they get the same as everyone else, people are going to start to notice that, and then your engagement is going to start to drop off. I didn't say this wasn't a lot of work, but it's things for you to ponder. Social rewards, I'll leave that with you. Something we've tried recently and it's working is having meetings while people are walking. Not sitting always at a table discussing things, but getting people moving. And then volunteering within the community and recognizing those volunteers. So, I'd like you just to discuss for just a minute or two again in your group, is there any one non-monetary idea that you think you might contemplate going back to your organization? Or you're already doing it and now you're convinced this is what we need to keep doing. Non-monetary. Don't talk about the compensation piece, the money piece, it's the non-monetary piece. So away you go. Okay, folks, we're just going to bring you back together so we can be mindful of time. That is my presentation on compensation, and I think now you understand what I mean when I say total compensation. It's not just financial. So a few administrative things.